I've been recently reading Beyond Good and Evil by Friedrich Nietzsche, and I am by no means a genius, so I'll start things simple. I've been really hooked by the attention to words, and when going through passage to passage, I will not claim to have any in depth insight into the content. As I said, still amateur, but I can appreciate the necessity of language, the words in each sentence, you know? Often from an academic perspective, there is an innate romanticism that one is eventually hooked on with regards to origins of words, Latin, Greek, the archaic of the sort. But how about the makeup of compound words and simpler words and words in conjunction with a more recent history? You know? Does one really need millions of years of history, thousands, even hundreds of retrospective cataloging to impart and by that virtue remain content with the merit of the word used in and of itself and in the context of a sentence, paragraph, and narrative for that matter? For example, let's say, on that note, the things happening in Iran regarding the Strait of Hormuz, you have one expert coming on CNN and saying that a worst case scenario would be if the Strait of Hormuz remains more or less closed, etc., etc. Now let's focus on the more or less closed. And let's take things simple. More or less closed. What does it mean? What's your definition of more or less closed? And how are we going to break that down? Okay. More or less closed in anything but the literal sense. Do you mean with regards to implications, practical implications? Let's say who is in control, what are the specifics of the negotiations, if a ship is passing through, to where the insurance company is involved in insuring ships on any stakeholder side for that matter. Is it closed because of how strenuous or how lax the normal proceedings tend to be, both in circumstances preceding this conflict, during this conflict, and post this conflict? You know, what is the definition of more or less closed or open? And what is more, what is less? Because you need to know that to be able to convey what compromise is. Interesting. And yeah, let's send that. What does more or less closed mean in that context of that CNN broadcast from that expert in recent time? I actually found that on TikTok. So, what is more or less closed? Explain it, break that down in every possible sense so that you can argue from a vantage point of strategy and not simply gloss over finer details for the sake of the ever so enticing play on vocabulary. Which, far be it from me to condemn, I mean, I'm doing it right now, but I think we can all agree by virtue of knowing and studying and having an opinion, I think it warrants a bit of temperance in how we exercise that freedom and responsibility.